Today we're diving into a familiar topic here on OFFBounds, a segment of the market that is not just growing, it's reshaping the entire industry. The e-commerce market, which includes recycling, repair, and reselling, is outpacing even traditional retail, driven by consumers who are increasingly opting for secondhand shopping. I'm here in New York, joined by the co-founder and CEO of ThredUp, the leader in the online consignment and thrift space. ThredUp has revolutionized the way we think about secondhand fashion, offering a platform for buying and selling pre-loved clothing, shoes, and accessories for women and children. But that's not all. He'll also be taking the stage at Shoptalk Fall in Chicago this October 16th to 18th, where the future of retail will be front and center. If you haven't secured your spot yet, check the show notes for an exclusive OFFBounds discount to join us at this must-attend event. Here's Paula Macaggi, and this is a special retail innovation series of my show in partnership with our only Shoptalk Fall. Welcome to OFFBounds. James, I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Are you ready for all the questions I have? Because I think I have so many.
How much time do we have? Yes, I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right. So let's start with how you build ThredUp, because nowadays is something that we talk a lot. Secondhand, resell, recycle, repair. 15 years ago when you started, it wasn't that much popular topic.
Yes.
How did you know it was the future already?
Yeah, well, of course not. But it has been an interesting journey because there was a time when nobody wanted to talk to me, right? Nobody cared about what I was talking about. And, at some point, probably like 2014, 2015, there just was this generational shift where all of a sudden you had young people who were shopping secondhand. I remember we ran this campaign called, sort of the destigmatization, of secondhand, and how now it was cool to shop secondhand. And I just laughed because it was something I'd been pounding the pavement on for so long. And then finally we went from the kids nobody wanted to talk to the kids everyone wanted to talk to. So it's been a journey.
I bet. And yeah, like I had an episode that we talked only about Ecommerce and how that's growing, and it's growing even faster than the retail market itself.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's growing about 10 times faster than traditional retail at this point. And what's interesting is that every time we look at the data around the growth of resale, it appears to be growing, even faster. And so much of it is where young people are shopping, how people are thinking about value, and so I think it's an exciting industry. I think one of the things I've been saying for a long time is, it's not a trend. Like, this isn't a fad where people are going to wake up one day and be like, nope, I only want to buy new again. And I think once that starts to set in for folks who work in the broader retail industry, wherever you sit, you start to think about, I need to figure out how to make this work in my business.
Yeah, well, eBay has been doing this kind of like for a while. How are you different than eBay, for example?
Yeah, I mean, eBay, kind of the OG in the resale world. I mean, what's crazy is eBay is now almost 30 years old. And so the big difference is that they want to stay out of the taking product business, right? eBay is a pure marketplace. They connect buyers and sellers. They don't touch anything. They don't really do much in the value-added services. For us, our core thesis was that there's a lot of people out there that want to buy and sell secondhand, but they don't want to do the work. And so the thing that eBay has always struggled with, struggle is probably too strong a word, but tried to figure out is, how do I get more supply on the platform? How do I get more people to sell on eBay? We've kind of flipped that on their head and said, well, just send everything to us. And so we run distribution centers all over the country, and we process all the goods for the sellers. And so that's the big difference, is that unlike eBay, which just connects buyers and sellers, we really sit in the middle. We think about it as a managed marketplace to help the sellers do all the things they want to do, and then provide this really awesome browsing experience for buyers. So that's the big difference.
Yeah, I don't buy secondhand. Yeah. I'm sorry, guys.
Not yet.
Because I find confusing. I find hard.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I go to a secondhand, like a thrift store here in New York, there's so many items to look through. Like it's just difficult for me to find. Is that something you...
One of the core reasons we started the business was that the average person doesn't love their thrift store experience. I'm not saying there aren't millions of people who do, right? But when you poll 100 consumers, nobody's like, man, shopping at secondhand stores is the most amazing consumer experience, right? People are like, I love the thrill of the hunt. I love some of it, but nobody walks in there and walks out just overwhelmed with the quality of the shopping experience. So I think that's where online can provide a lot of value. And so for ThredUp, it's just like shopping on Nordstrom or Amazon, right? You can search, you can filter, buy anything you want. And so, and the other thing is you can do it at midnight. You can do it at 3 a.m. You can do it when you wake up. And I think that's the other advantage, over time. We see a lot of people shopping on their commutes. If you look at the data, on their way to work, on their way home from work. And so all that, I think, gives us an advantage over physical.
We'll get into data soon.
Okay.
I'm interested. But now I'm thinking that you have two different customer journeys.
Yes.
The ones that are selling.
Yep.
The ones that are buying.
Sure.
Which I imagine could be the same people too.
Yep. Some of them it overlaps. Yep.
What is the seller experience? Yep. How does it work?
Yeah, so for the seller, it's you go to the site, you order a clean out kit. That's what we call them, and a clean out kit is a bag, and the bag holds 30-ish items, 15 to 20 pounds worth of stuff. So think about it as like a large laundry bag. You fill it with all the items you're no longer wearing. You don't need to tag anything, list anything, identify anything, you don't need to do anything. Literally, you can just stuff it all in the bag. We obviously have standards, and we sort of educate you. And you send it to us. So you can leave it outside your door to be picked up. The Postal Service can pick it up for you. You can take it to FedEx, UPS, however you want to get it to us, we can get it. And then from our distribution centers, we do all the work then, right? So for the seller, it's super convenient. And I think that is the thing that has really unlocked supply in our business.
You don't want to do the work, we do the work for you.
Yeah, one of the things that's true, about I think Americans is people, we're getting lazier. Right? So, I like to think that ThredUp is on trend given that consumers are getting lazier, and ThredUp is really, we position it as it's the easiest way to get rid of the things that they're no longer wearing. And I think the trade-off the consumer makes, right, because not everything is free, the trade-off that the customer makes is they don't make as much money. So if you sell items yourself on eBay, right, or on one of the other peer-to-peer platforms, you are going to make more money, right? And it is going to take you a lot more time. And so I think
what is worth your time.
That's exactly right. And so the minute people start to value their time, then I think ThredUp is a great opportunity. I think for people who don't value their time that highly, right? Then I think or they love the sport of it. I think selling on your own is better.
The business model is you taking care of of everything for the seller and sending it to the buyer, taking the pictures.
We do everything. Yep.
Checking each clothes. Description, is that you
we do the descriptions, all the tagging. We use a lot of technology to do all that. But we do everything. The seller literally doesn't have to do anything. Now, we give the seller some options if they want to add information, but it's totally optional. And then, and then for the buyer, it's just like shopping on the internet. It's pretty easy.
And I saw the news that you added a peer-to-peer experience as well in the website. So that changes a little bit.
Well, it's funny. So we've not added peer-to-peer. It's kind of amazing. So back to your first question around 15 years, what have we learned? I think one of the things we've learned is that people pay a lot more attention to what we do now. So the true story is that we simply launched a landing page for peer-to-peer to get customer feedback. And because we wanted to understand, we were starting to see in the market that there were customers who said, I send some of my stuff to ThredUp, but then I sell some of the stuff that I want on my own. And we started to be like, okay, well, why is it that you're not sending it to ThredUp? And what we learned is that there were certain items that they just wanted to, whether they were emotionally attached to the item.
I want to know who's going to buy.
I want to know, right? Or they know that there's something quirky about it, or they know it has more value than we might understand about it for whatever reason. And so we wanted to test, hey, would there be a complimentary offering in peer-to-peer? So anyway, we launched this landing page. All it did was click to be on a list and to provide feedback. And I think in the first couple hours, we had a couple thousand people. And this was not something that was anywhere. This thing was buried, right? And it just so happened that somebody who found it posted it on X. And then that person was being followed by a bunch of other reporters, and then reporters picked it up, and then it ended up in the media. But the true story is we do not have a peer-to-peer offering.
If I want to sell through your platform to someone else, I can do it today.
We have no peer-to-peer offering. But look, I think what's shown us is that there is some interest. And now we have to figure out, does that make sense as an offering to our sellers and on what timeline?
And I think a lot of the questions, I told him this before the interview. I think a lot of my questions that makes me like stop and think like, how does it work?
Yeah.
It's a lot on the operation side.
Sure.
Because one thing is having a fashion brand where you have 1,000 items for one SKUs.
Yeah.
And you have 1,000 SKUs for 1,000 items.
Correct.
And like you have to take the picture, you have to add the description, you have to do everything to upload on the website. That is ridiculously a lot of work.
Yeah.
How do you manage that? Like, does it even make sense?
Yeah, I mean, so I think at this point we're 150 to 200 million unique SKUs, through the platform. So that's a massive number of unique items. And so, how do we manage it? I think it's been a process over the past, 15 years. We have built logistics, infrastructure, processing capabilities. I think one of the things people underestimate is all of the software. Like, we really think about ourselves as a software technology company, an infrastructure company. And it's really through trial and error of, how do you process 150,000 unique items every day.
It sounds very inefficient.
Yeah. But it turns out that, like many things, once you standardize the process and you use technology to assist people, you can make it work. And so I think what we've seen over the last probably 5-6 years is we look at the processes that are really labor intensive, right? So whether it's inspection or adding itemization to the items, whatever those processes are, and we measure our throughput in the company in seconds. So how many seconds does it take to bring an item, in and make it available for sale? And we look at the big blocks where there are lots of seconds being devoted, and then we invent technology to make that better, easier, faster. And so
you first see the need.
Yeah.
We should make this faster to make it more efficient.
Absolutely. So if you take the top that you're wearing, right, there was a time probably 5-6 years ago where there would have been an associate in our DC who would have tagged it, right, sleeveless, mock or turtleneck, right? It would have put stripes, or it would have added a bunch of stuff. And now we're doing all of that using the photos and AI, right? So there's less need for folks to properly identify the item. The other really cool thing about the way we're using technology is that I don't know anything about that top, right?
But it's Abercrombie,
right? So, the technology we're using might have been able to identify, hey, it's Abercrombie. It is something that's targeted at city-going millennials, right? Or like it then is able to tag all of these things. That's fascinating stuff that we would never have been able to do with one of our associates in the DCs. And so again, that's how we're evolving our use of technology in the DCs.
That must be, I imagine, like when OpenAI launched.
Yeah.
You were like, oh yes, this is exactly what we needed.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has been a lot of the stuff we thought we would build ourselves, right? So I've always imagined you could use visual technology. My co-founder, Chris, technology entrepreneur, we always knew we'd be able to build something that we were able to tag that top, like the way that we've talked about it. But I think AI just sort of took a fundamental leap forward. So it took something that might have taken us 5 to 10 years, right, to fully build across 50,000 brands. And
how many millions?
Yeah, a couple 100 million items, 50,000 brands, right? And then just instantaneously, it enabled us to do more than we ever thought possible. And I think that's what's been pretty exciting.
So the employees can also focus on other things.
Yeah, quality inspection, right? Processing more goods, packing out orders, right? All the things that we really do need, associates working at a high level to do. But there's things that the technology can do that the human eye, right, just cannot do as effectively. I'll give you another example. Like, we're now starting to use technology to inspect flaws. So potentially, somewhere on that shirt, right, is a loose thread somewhere, right?
Yeah.
For a human, right, to find that would take so much time. But if you run that through a visual AI technology that is evolving, it can say, oh, it's got this small flaw on the lower back hem, right? And now we're not there for all the items, but you can imagine a world where your photos, they can find, stains you might not have seen, pilling you might not have seen, loose threads you might not have seen, stretched out collar, like all this stuff that I think is really hard for people to do.
I'm excited to see how the future is going to develop for that too.
Yes, me too.
We talked before, right? Like that everybody wants to talk to you now.
Well, yeah.
Every brand now, they're having resell.
Yeah, resell as a service, yeah.
How do you offer that to brands? We had Vera Bradley here a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And she mentioned like, oh, we work with ThredUp.
Yeah, sure.
How does it work? What is this partnership?
So there are basically two ways that a brand engages with us. So one is that, that clean out kit that I mentioned, the take back program. One of the things that brands are really committed to is, how do they get their product back, right? So how do they take back product in their store, online? So we power scaled take back programs for brands. So we work now with, I'm going to say more than 50 brands at this point, from Athleta to J. Crew, Madewell, right? So we work with all these brands to power take back, which is really important for them, not just because it's good for the consumer, but it's really good for how they think about and talk about sustainability, circularity. So that's kind of one, take back. The second is that we then process all of those goods inside our facilities and we power resale shops for them. So now if you go to a number of these brands, Vera Bradley's one, Kate Spade's another, on their navigation, you can find a tab that says secondhand or pre-loved, or Madewell calls it Madewell Forever. Click on that tab, and there's a whole site of branded product, right, that is secondhand, and all of that is powered by us. And so we power take back at scale, right, because we're really the only player that can do this at this scale that some of these brands require, and then we power these resale shops. And so it's a nice way for brands to play on both sides, and we want to keep doing it.
You are a tech company then?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think probably almost to a fault. I think sometimes, I didn't grow up in the fashion industry. I think sometimes we over-index on the technology and the operations, and we probably need some better merchandising, at the company. And so I think a lot around how do we balance being a fashion company with being a technology company. And
that's the next step?
Yeah, it is actually. I think that the power of some of the AI tooling that we're doing, and sort of where I think the customer wants us to go is I think better, stronger visual merchandising.
You started 15 years ago. Yeah. You already had eBay. You had other bigger players.
Sure.
What takes from the leader to build something that is disruptive?
I think that we have been, over the last 15 years, you've seen a lot of businesses come and go, right, who, positioned as disruptors or innovators. I think for us, we have been obsessed about the problem. And I think the problem is, how do you get clothes out of consumers' closets as easy and as effectively as possible? How do you make it, the shopping experience for secondhand, feel indistinguishable, from shopping new? And so I think what gets me out of bed every day, and I think why I still love the business, like truly love the business, is I love the problems, because the problems are still really hard. And
they're still there to be solved.
They're still there to be solved, right? There's no question that we can process more goods. We can make it easier on the seller. There's no question our merchandising and how we use AI tools to improve how the customer shops can definitely get better. And so I think to be a leader in the industry is to have a management team, founders who are really love the problem deeply and want to keep solving it. And so I think that's where we've been. We are not in love with our solution, right? I think more than anything, I'm kind of the guy who walks in. I'm like, let's blow this up. This can be better. And sometimes that's to a fault, right? But I think it keeps the company innovating and evolving.
Yeah. I interviewed the author of the book, Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution.
Oh, really? Well, there you go. I didn't even know that book existed. But yes, that's how I think about the world.
That's a book.
Yeah.
He founded Waze, so he was trying to solve the traffic jam. Yeah. But he said the easiest way to add value to your customer is to focus on the problem and not the solution.
Yes. Yeah, I know, and it's easy. It's easy to get so solution-oriented. And I think the other piece is to build products or build features that customers don't need, right? And so
just because you want to build it,
I love Waze. I use it all the time, and it fundamentally solves my how do I get from point A to point B as effectively as possible. But it also does all this other stuff I don't really need, right? And so it's funny how I'm sure that there are lots of people who use the how do I find gas feature on Waze, right? But I always look at that, I'm like, I don't need that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, we are here because of Shoptalk Fall.
Yes.
Which is going to be their first event happening in fall. And in
fall,
Chicago,
yes.
we don't have to go to Vegas.
Yes.
Which is a plus.
Yeah, it is a plus.
I know that they have a lot of exciting new things happening.
Yeah.
One of them is that it's a lot of women are going to be on stage, which is very exciting too. You were
I'm not a woman, but I will be
You're
there.
not a woman, but technically you work in fashion. I think to see how few of us are in the leadership position, which is super exciting. What are you looking forward to see at Shoptalk this fall?
I think what I've gathered from the fall event is that it is going to be smaller and more curated, like set of content. I think the quality bar on the people they're putting on stage, sort of the inclusion, of more female leaders. I think all those things are really good. For me, the power of the conferences is how do they build intimacy into these bigger events? And I think, talking to the Shoptalk team, I think that's one of the core pieces for this event. And, as we talked about earlier, like at all conferences, they get really big. And so how do you, within the capacity of a big event, build opportunity for people to connect? And so
how much can you grow and still be intimate?
Yeah. And I think that's really, it's a challenge for all events, right? And so I'm looking forward to that.
Me too, especially because it's in Chicago. You're going to eat the pizza?
I'm always. In fact, there's a pizza place right by my house called Zachary's Chicago Pizza, which has been there for a very long time. And so I'm very familiar with Chicago deep dish pizza.
I haven't eaten that yet.
Oh, you're missing out. You're missing out.
Yeah. I ask other people here, like, if they have a store to visit. Have you worked with these stores, like pop-up stores for ThredUp?
Yeah, we've done pop-ups. We actually did a pop-up in Brooklyn here a few years ago with Madewell, our resale partner. We've had stores. We had some stores in Texas. We had some stores in California. So we have experimented with stores. Unfortunately, so much of our experimentation was happening 2019, like into 2020. And then the pandemic obviously really hurt that experimentation. And so I ultimately think we'll get back to some of that. But right now we're storeless, as they say.
All right. Well,
we'll figure it out.
I will visit one just to check it out. Like if you manage to not have the complex.
Yeah, I know. Well, I know. You already told me how much you hate your store, so we won't build it like that.
We'll see. And who inspires you? Who inspires you in your leadership journey?
Yeah,
and should be here with me as well.
Yeah. I think look, there's lots of folks I think in the technology world that I've gotten to know that are inspiring me. Reed Hastings at Netflix immediately comes to mind because he's had a storied career. He has reinvented Netflix multiple times. I think increasingly, back to our prior conversation, I've become more inspired by merchants and fashion leaders who've stood the test of time. Like I continue to be inspired by what Ralph Lauren's doing, right? I think what Mickey Drexler is doing. So I think those are the types of folks now that, because I think it's hard to stay relevant in fashion. Furstenberg, right? Like these people that have been doing this for 2, 3, 4 decades and people still want to buy their stuff. Eileen Fisher, right? Like all these. So those are the people I think now that I'm like truly inspired by.
Yeah, you have to be really good to understand the new consumer, especially now that changes so quickly.
And the pressure. I mean, if you're a technology leader, you're managing the evolution of technology in a technology company, whether it's Netflix or it's Waze. In fashion, like you have to be cool every year. Like the pressure, right, to be cool and relevant every year, I think is wild. And so I think I'm increasingly inspired by that.
Exactly what people want.
It's what people want, to invent trends that, this is a founder, Sarah from who founded Spanx, right? She has a new company out building like a new like sneaker heel that I just saw. And like, who knows whether people will love it or not. But I love the fact that like she's out there taking a risk to try and be, invent like a new thing and be relevant. And I think like people like that are so cool.
I saw sneaks. I'm waiting to see if that's gonna pick up.
Yeah, I don't know. Curious. I mean, at first you're like, oh, I don't know. But that's true of just about every.
But that's the first thing we've seen like that. Maybe it will be the next trend.
I mean, I remember when Apple launched the AirPods, like right, all it's like, oh my god, it looks like your ears are dripping. Right, that was like the first.
Who wants these watches?
And so there's so much history around kind of how form factors have evolved, and I'm certainly rooting for it.
And I think there are a lot of brands that are asking themselves now, how can I be more sustainable? How
Yes.
can I join the circularity programs? How
Yep.
can I serve my customer better on that
Yeah.
on that level?
Yeah.
What would be your advice to a brand that is still wondering how to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is the risk that I see in the industry broadly is really a race to the bottom around fast fashion and how do I make things cheaper to price things cheaper. I think brands, like, if they can figure out how to go the other way, I think making better stuff that consumers are willing to pay a little bit more for. I actually think that's probably the answer. And I think that, again, that's what I think Ralph Lauren has been. It's amazing to see a brand that has continued to raise price. I mean, I think they basically raise prices every year, but the quality.
And it's hard to compete with Shein.
Yeah.
Like,
But the
it's
quality is real, right? Like, I just bought something the other day, and like, I got it, and I'm like, it is meaningfully better, right, than other commensurate products. And so, I don't know. I think brands need to find out how to balance that quality, because once everything is crappy, then once the product quality is crappy, then it truly is like a race to the bottom on price. And so if there's any way to differentiate,
don't have to work too much on discounts to make you work.
Yeah, and I just think I don't think it's a good place to live, right? You mentioned Abercrombie. I think Abercrombie is like a good example. Like, it has reinvented the product, right? And
I'm obsessed. I wasn't, but
no,
I'm obsessed.
And so I think that the quality of the product does matter. And so anyway, I think that's sort of the advice I give folks.
Very good. And my last question.
Last question. Okay.
What is your advice? Because you built something from you left college and you built it pretty much.
Business school, but yes.
What is your advice to someone that is starting now and wants to build something that is relevant in the world?
I don't know. For me, I think it's somebody. We talked about the problem. I think finding a problem that you love. I think finding a problem that's big. I think sometimes, like, if people want to build stuff, asking themselves, is this a problem worth solving? And because there's lots of business ideas out there that are problems that may not be worth solving. And so I tell people, like, is it a passionate thing that you have for this problem? Is it worth solving? And then the other piece is, I think, especially young, and I have 3 kids, so I'm not speaking just from no experience. I think there's like this instant gratification idea, and I often tell people, like, hey, where do you want to be in 10 years? Like, would you be happy if, like, you were working on this thing 10 years from now? Because that's how long it's going to take, right? For me, it's now 15 years, and I think if people are like, yeah, I would love to be working on this 10 years from now. I think if you can answer that, say yes to that. It's a problem worth solving, something you're passionate about. I think those are the recipes for longevity. And so that's kind of the way I approach things.
Very inspiring. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next time we're going to see each other, probably it's going to be in Chicago. I'm very excited to see you on stage there.
Yes, I'll be there. I will see you. We'll eat some pizza.
We should have the pizza.
Sounds good.
That's our Chicago plan. Thank you so much for coming, and see you then.
Thank you.